morning, students. Today, 12th classes, which topic is going to discuss about namely called as ecology. You know that what are the definitions of ecology? Study of surrounding. In the chapter, which things to be discussing in the last class is namely called as principles of ecology. In the principles of ecology, which categories the last class is going to be discussed about is namely called as environmental factors. Environmental factors are also called ecological factors. The ecological factor, they can be classified as various types. They can be climatic factor, edaphic factor, topographic factor, and biotic factor. What the first factor is namely called as climatic factor. In the climatic factor, they can be listed so many types. It's namely called as light, temperature, water, fourth one, wind, and fifth one, biotic factors. The last class it must be discussing is light and as well as the temperature. I am going to that third one factor is commonly called as water. So like light and temperature, water is also one of the important ecological factor. If it is a presence or absence of water, that's also happen so many kinds of adverse effect it must be takes place. So water, it is a very essential for survival of all living organisms. So water is must. Why the water is a must? Because all kinds of vital process which carry out properly mean the presence of water it must be carried out. If water is not available, that time it is affect vital process of all metabolic activities. So it is affect vital process of all metabolic activities. So it is believed water it is basic lives on all living organisms. In addition, the life is originated from in the presence of water, who give us evidence is commonly called as evolutions of earth. So you have to study about the evolution of earth for survival of all living organisms or the life is started. It is the basic needs of water. In all over the world, the water is covered. %70% of earth. So remaining 30% it must be involving in soil. For here, for plants, The availability of water, it is obtained from three kinds of ways. Namely, first of all, atmospheric moisture. Second thing, precipitation. Third thing, soil water. So the plants require water for three ways, namely atmospheric moisture and precipitation and soil water. Before the entering nature, the forest can be classified as two types. One is evergreen forest. Second one, sclerophyllous forest. How you have to be definitions about evergreen forest. The evergreen forest is found heavy rains throughout the year. What do you say? Evergreen forest is found heavy rains are occur throughout the year. What is it called? Sclerophyllous forest. That means heavy rains are occur during winter season. Low rains are occur during summer season. So that's why to be say the forest can be classified two types, evergreen forest and sclerophyllous forest. I am going to like this. Productivities of plants and the distributions of plants, it is based on presence of the water. So how much amount of water that must be available on the surrounding, that's are determine the plant productivity. Because if water is not available to recur among mean, no cultivation takes place. No cultivation takes place means there is no production. So productivity is a depends on presence of water. Likewise, distributions of plants. You know, a number of plants, it must be distributed different kinds of climatic condition, different kinds of area, which is responsible for determining is commonly called as in the presence of water. So what I have to say, productivity and the distribution of plants, it is based on or depends on presence of the water availability on the empty area. So here in addition, quality of water, it is a must for aquatic plants. Are also called aquatic organism. You know that water is polluted, the organism cannot be survived, which leads to death. If water is polluted, such a kinds of water you have to utilize to your agricultural elements. All kinds of grain and all kinds of compound, it is present to some kinds of toxic and poison substance are there. So quality of water, it is a must for aquatic organism. For here, can I mention some of the percentage level? What percentage level? In all over the world, water is occupied 70% of the earth. What is the total amount of salinity water it's occurred to some other water bodies, or otherwise known as what are the percentage level of salinity it must be occur other water requirements. First of all, there are 5% salinity that are occur in land water, or also known as fresh water. So you know, for every day we are consuming as a fresh water,
that fresh water, how much amount of salinity it must be occur? 5% there. Then 30 to 35% of salinity it must be occur in seawater. Then third one, more than 100% of salinity that are occur in lagoons. What are lagoons now? Where the lake of fresh water is mingled with the sea water, that is commonly called as lagoons. So there it may be possessed, the salinity it must be occur more than 100%. Such a water, how it can be called? The term is commonly called as hypersaline. Sometimes use the term. What is the naming of hypersaline? Because salinity it must be occur more than 100%. Where is occur? Lagoons. So based on the saline tolerance, the plant can be classified as a two types. Which basis? Based on saline tolerance. The plants can be classified as two types. First of all, euryhaline. Second thing, stenohaline. So it's a term which basis classified based on the saline tolerance. The plants can be classified two types, namely called as euryhaline and as well as stenohaline. What is the meaning of euryhaline? That means the plants which are present in water with wide range of salinity. What is it? The plants which are found in water with wide range of salinity, that is are considered as euryhaline. What are the examples of commonly called as euryhaline? That's commonly called as marine algae and marine angiosperm. So what are the commonly called as stenohaline? That means the organisms which are found in water with small range of salinity. What are the examples of stenohaline is commonly called as? Plants of Echuris. Now I am going to some tolerant environmental factors. What is it? I am going to some tolerance environmental factors. Tolerance environmental factors. First of all, what is the terminology? What is that environmental factors? So terminology and the environmental factors. For terminal is commonly called as it may be considered as low as well as high. For here the low stenothermal. then eurythermal. So what I call as stenothermal? High range of temperature. The plant, it must be adjusted in different kinds of environment. That's called steno. Eurythermal chromatic. Thermal is a heat or temperature. Some of the plant, it must be adjusted low ranges or small range of temperature. That is commonly called as eurythermal. Which factor between this commonly called as temperature. So based on the salinity, that's a call stenohalin and urihalin. That's a commonly called based on salinity. Based on habitat selection, to be called stenoecious and uriaceous. So stenoecious is commonly called as the plants are located in a restricted area. What is restricted area? They can be present only the special place around. That means botanical garden, park like this. What are the uriaceous is commonly called as the plants are located in any habitat. That's a commonly called as habitat selection. Are also called niche. So based on water, to be called as stenohydric water. What is steno? The plants are which are located to wide range of water availability or mixed water they can be present. That's called stenohydric. Then opposite is euryhydric. That's based on water. Based on the food called stenopagic. What is steno? The organism that must be accept mixed food. So different kinds of food is accompanied with them. That's called stenopagic. The plants, it must be accepted to neurology is commonly called as euryphagic. The classified based on food. The last one commonly called as based on depth of water bodies is called stenobenthic. So benthic means depth of water. So stenobenthic is commonly called as the plants are adapted to different kinds of water depth. This is called as stenobenthic. Opposite toward that, eurybenthic. That's a classified based on depth of water body or depth of water habitat. So it is a very must for a NEET point of view. Please go to study, understand. If you have to be doubt anything means it must be rectified or clarified to the next classes. Now I am going to discuss about some of the plants to tolerance to the toxicity. What are the plan? It must be adjusted to the tolerance that I am discussed. The first one, that is commonly called as tomato and as well as soybean. That plants having tolerance to toxicity of cadmiums. So cadmium is commonly called as it is a poisonous elements which are generally present to tomato and soybeans. These are things you have to be consumed means it disrupt so many kinds of adverse effect to human health aspects. So that the tomato and the soybean, the toxicity tolerance of cadmium are the cadmium cells which are separate at stored in some group of cells. So where that cadmium is there, that kinds of cadmium, they can be isolated cadmium, it can be stored some few group of cells. Due to storing the nature, the cadmium prevent to affecting in other cells. That kinds of capabilities that must be occur in tomato and soybean. Second thing, rice and Iconium. You know that Iconium Tamil name is commonly called as Akaja Tamari. That is usually spread to any kinds of water bodies. How to commonly know? Water hayasya. It is one of that water pollutants. If it is easily spread on the water bodies, it's affect to water habitats. No one, any water organism never to survive the nature. So that disturbance. So rice and Iconium also having cadmium. That cadmium tolerates by the presence of protein. That protein bind the cadmium itself. First one, the cadmium, it can store some group of cell. But in rice and Iconium, the cadmium is tolerated by binding it's the proteins. So the protein is binding to the cadmium. So here, the rice, Iconium, soybean and the tomato, it is one of the important role is commonly called as. It is dissolve or separate the cadmium from contaminated soils. So what do you say? That kinds of plants is also involving separate the cadmium from contaminated soil. So some of the soil is contaminated, it's a polluted soil. From the polluted soil, the cadmium is isolated by using tomato, soybean, rice and Iconium. So these are things it commonly called as examples of tolerance in toxicity. Can I go to that fourth one, climatic factor is commonly called as wind. Air is a motion is commonly called as wind. So like light, temperature and water, wind is also one of the important ecological factor. Because wind is essential and so many kinds of aspects. So the wind, it includes so many kinds of gaseous components, so many kinds of particles, so many kinds of other components or other constituents. So wind is a motion. It is also one of the important ecological factor, also called a climatic factor. The atmospheric air include number of gases, particles and other constituents. What are the gases which are present to the atmospheric gases? Namely, nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, argon and other gases. So what are gases component? Nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, argon and the other gases. How much amount of nitrogen which is present to the atmosphere? It's considered as 78% of atmosphere they can form nitrogen. Then 21% is oxygen, 0.03% is carbon dioxide, argon and other gases commonly called 0.93%. So for here, that air, it can be possess so many kinds of gaseous components. Apart from what are the other constituents are there? What other constituents present to the air is commonly called as water vapor, seventh thing, gaseous pollutant, dust particle, smoke, microorganism, then spores, then pollen grains. So those are things it is considered as other constituents on the air. What are the gaseous pollutant? It must be occur to that environment. That's a commonly called as sulfur dioxide and nitrous oxides. What is that? Sulfur dioxide and nitrous oxide. Those are commonly called as gaseous pollutants. You know that each and everything it can be measured using some instruments like this. Anemometer is an instrument that can use it as speed of wind. So how that the motion it must be takes place, which apparatus to be used is commonly called as anemometer. Next I am going to discuss about what is that effects of wind. First, effects of wind. Wind is one of the important factors that are responsible for formations of rain. So rainwater, it's fall on the earth means it is a must wind flow. So to say rain is or wind is one of the important factors that is responsible for formations of rainwater. Second thing, it causes waves on the surface of lakes and oceans. So the wind flow it takes place, it causes waves on the surface of lakes and the ocean, which leads to stimulate and productions of water vapor. Third thing, strong wind will cause soil erosion. What is that? If strong blow of wind takes place, which leads to soil erosion. If a soil erosion it is automatically regularly happen, mean which will reduce soil fertility. Soil loss the fertility means no one plant it never should possible to grow. So soil it's require enrichments. So high blow of air it causes soil erosion which reduce soil fertility. The fourth one, as well as strong wind which takes place is uprooting trees. What is called uprooting? Strong wind is takes place means due to the strong wind, some highly evaluated trees becomes of aura. It's a commonly called as uprooted big trees. Uprooted means fall on due to what that strong wind. Fifth one, strong wind is takes place means it helping increase the rate of transpiration. Then sixth one point, The wind is also helps anemo plus pollination. What is that? The wind is also helping anemo plus pollination. What is the pollination? Pollination which takes place with the help of wind, that is commonly called as anemo plus pollination. Then seventh one, the wind is also helping dispersals of many fruits, many seeds, many spores and the pollens. So with the help of speed of wind, dispersals of many fruit, seed, spores and pollens. The last one, the wind is takes place for unidirectional. So unidirectional wind which is always stimulates flake form of tree. What I call flag form of tree? Do you know that blowing of flag, only one side? Due to heavy wind, it happened to what? Unidirectional wind flows. The responsible stimulate flag forms of tree. I am going to comment a colors. What is that? Greenhouse effect. Are also called albedo effect. So what are they called? Greenhouse effect or also called albedo effect is commonly called as. Some of the gases, it is let out to the atmosphere which cause climatic changes. What are gases are emitted in this atmosphere is commonly called as emissions of dust and aerosols. So where the dust and aerosols are reduced in the environment means from automobiles or from industries or from forest fire or carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, then DMS, that's called dimethyl sulfur. Those are the compounds which are responsible for releasing in this environment that substances which are altering temperature in any kinds of area. So that the aerosol, what I call aerosol, it is nothing but solid and liquid particle suspended in the atmosphere. So that's a commonly called as aerosol. So aerosol with the particle, what is the play as an important role is commonly called as reflecting solar radiation from the atmosphere. What is it? Aerosol with the dust particle reflecting solar radiation from that atmosphere or from that earth, that is commonly called as greenhouse effect or also called albedo effect. For here, sulfur is play as an important role is commonly called as it causes acid rain. Why that rain is became regarding but acid? Because due to acidification due to acidifications of rainwater which leads to acid rain. So the sulfur is not only make regarding what acid rain, it also happen ozone depletion. The last one, climatic factor, is commonly called as fire. Fire is commonly called as, it is an exothermic factor. What is it?
It is exothermic factor. It is due to chemical reactions of combustions. By the chemical reactions of combustion, which are releasing heat and light. What is it? Fire is an exothermic factor due to the chemical process or chemical reactions of combustion which are releasing heat and light. So fire, it is a naturally is a man-made. Or 90% or 99% it's a man-made. Sometimes it's a happen to be naturally by interactions or frictions. It must be occur between the tree on the surface. That one it can possible. So based on the fire, it can be classified into three types. First of all, ground fire. Second thing, first of all, ground fire. Second one, herb and shrub fire. Third one, crown fire. What I call ground fire. That kinds of fire is commonly called as, which is are usually flameless. What is that? Which are usually flameless, and as well as it is subterranean. That's a commonly called as ground fire. Second thing, herb and shrub are also called surface fire. Surface fire. Surface fire, it is usually flame, which is consumed herbs and shrubs. So what are the examples of subterranean commonly called as? It is grasses. But here surface fiber consume what the herb and shrubs. Last one, crown fire. What I call crown fire? Crown fire, it's especially is occur forest canopy. What are the commonly called as? Canopy is commonly called as biggest tree with the branches of forest. So that place only responsible to going to fire. So ground fire, surface fire and ground fire. So based on the nature of ground fire, surface fire, ground fire, what effect it must be takes place. So next we call what that? Effect of fiber. First effect. The fiber, or it may be act as the fire. The first effect is commonly called as on the ground plants, which is are generally lethal. Lethal means which leads to death. So first effect on the ground plant is commonly called as lethal. Second thing, burning scar. What is the scar? Where that landmark it must be given. It's a commonly called as scar. So burning scar, it is a suitable places for entry of parasitic fungus and insects. What is that? Burning scars. It is a suitable places for introduction or entering of parasitic fungus and insects. The third one is commonly called as fire
that is bring out introductions of or alterations of rainfall, light changes, nutrition cycle, fertility of soil, pH, soil, flora and fauna. What is that? It is bring out alteration in the rainfall, light, nutrition cycle, fertility of soil, pH, and soil, flora and fauna. What is it called flora? Flora means plants. Fauna means animals. Then fourth one is commonly called as some of the fungi. It is grow on a particular soils of burning area. Which fungus? It must be generally grow on that burning area is commonly called as Pyronium. Confluence. So some of the fungi which are growing only the burning soil alone. Which fungus is commonly called as Pyronium confluence. Such a process commonly called as pyroplus. So based on the nature, the fire can be classified various types. It is namely called as indicator fibers, second one, natural fire break, third one, ready to. So there are some fire kits indicated here. Indicator fibers or indicator fire. Then natural fire break, then ready to. What I call indicator fire. Some other component is commonly called as terrace. It comes under fern and Pyronium. Is a fungus. So terrace and Pyronium fungus, that is act as indicators. What indicators commonly called as burning of or restricted fire area, those things to be indicator, that to be commonly called as indicator fibers. Also called indicator fire. Second thing, natural fire break. What is natural fire break? You know that some of the vegetations having river, lake and the valley. So valley is also called a canyon to say. So the river, canyon and lake which are present in between the vegetation mean the presence of river and lake and a canyon slow the process of fire, that is commonly called as natural fire break. The third one is commonly called as a ready dome. What is the commonly called as a ready dome? It's commonly called as, it is a structural defense. The structural defense are generally occur in the plants against fire. What structural defense is occur to the plants? That a structural component is commonly called as a ready dome. You know that the plant it must be grow as a highly growth. The plant is a highly woody. The woody plant outermost is commonly called as a bark. So outermost bark, it is extended to the inner periderm. So the innermost layer is called what that periderm. The outermost bark, it is extended to the inner periderm. That is commonly called as a radidome. The radidome, it is made up of multiple layers of subrenized, or it is made up of subrine. This is second level substances. Subrenized periderm, cortical cell, and phloem tissue. Subrenized periderm, cortical cell, and phloem tissue. So, what is the main functions of radidome? Radidome, it is product plant or product stem from fire, excessive water loss, invasions of insect. What is invasion? Entry of insect, and infections of by microorganism. So, in the presence of the barky radidome, which protect the plants against fire, loss of water, invasions of insect, and infections of microorganism. Those are things is commonly called as types of fiber, namely called as indicator fiber, natural fabric, and the radidomes. So those are things we are discussing today classes. Remaining thing it must be discussing in coming classes. Thank you all.